All right, on top of his promise to deport millions of undocumented immigrants, President-elect Trump has also threatened to revoke the legal status of immigrants living in the U.S. Trump has specifically mentioned those afforded temporary protected status, which has been granted to more than 1 million immigrants from countries dealing with natural disasters, armed conflict, or other extraordinary circumstances. The designation for several countries ends next year, including El Salvador, Sudan, Ukraine, and Venezuela. Trump could simply let the protected status of these countries expire or revoke that status before the expiration date, which has never been done before. So let's bring in Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada. She's been calling on the Biden administration to protect the program.
And Senator, how would he do that?
Good morning. Well, first of all, let me just say thank you for drawing attention to this. This is the point. Right now, the president has the legal ability to do this. These countries that you just talked about already, really, they're horrific conditions. They satisfy what we have passed in Congress, the laws to allow the president to take action to provide TPS status to so many that are coming from these countries of horrific conditions. Some of them are already here. Some of them are already working. They are already contributing to the economy. They are part of our communities. And what the president can do is just take legal action to extend their TPS status. But it's not just our TPS recipients. My hope is that the president in the last 2 months also quickly processes our DACA recipients' applications. We need to make sure our dreamers are also have the ability to stay here, continue to be a part of the country that they grew up in, because unfortunately, as you have identified, the next administration is going to come in and there's going to be chaos around immigration and mass deportation. We've already seen it when the president was in office once before.
Senator, good morning. Great to have you with us. So what we're hearing so far from the incoming Trump administration, from his czar, as they're calling it, the border czar, Tom Homan, is that they're just going after the criminals. They want to get the criminals who are here illegally out of the country. What is your expectation about what mass deportation actually looks like, though?
Nobody's safe. I can tell you under the previous, when President Trump was in office the first time, I can tell you the calls to my office and the chaos that he created around immigration and separating families, and nobody was safe. Everybody in our community, at least in Nevada that I saw, they weren't protected, whether you were married to a U.S. citizen or whether you were a dreamer. So really, at the end of the day, what I take is what I hear from this incoming administration. They're going to engage in mass deportation and nobody's safe. So that's why I'm asking the administration to come in and take action that they can now to protect some of the immigrant community, TPS recipients, DACA recipients, make sure that at least we're bringing certainty to them and keeping their families together.
So David Drucker, let me ask you about what reporting you've gotten, what we've heard, what other people have heard, what Willie just referenced, is the incoming Trump administration talking about they're going to focus on the violent criminals. They're going to focus on those who've committed crimes and run them out. And they don't want a repeat of what happened in 2017. I'm curious if that lines up with what you're hearing. And I'm also curious what pressure they may be getting from Wall Street and from businesses and from smaller businesses, where you have a lot of these illegal immigrants who are actually helping staff family restaurants, family hardware stores, small businesses on Main Street, mid-sized businesses across America. I mean, this is obviously, if you talk to a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump, they'd say, yeah, get the criminals out, but please, we've got an economy to run here. Don't run out people who are here legally. What are you hearing?
Right, and I think we're going to see a debate within the White House and the administration broadly with exactly how extensive these deportation actions should be. There are so many Hispanic voters, in fact, that voted for Trump because they want criminal aliens deported, but they do not expect the Trump administration incoming to actually go after people that are here illegally but working. So that's the expectation from some of the voters that could be impacted themselves or members of their family. And I think a lot of people in the business community are expecting Trump to do what's best for the economy. And what's not good for the economy, even if it lines up with the law, is to do blanket mass deportations that sweeps up people who are working and are a part of these industries that are so vital to the U.S. economy. And the thing about this is, Joe, there's always conflicting signals coming from within Trump's circle, because some of the people advising him are hardline and want these deportation orders to include everybody that is here illegally. They want to see the president revoke temporary status to immigrants because they feel that it'll benefit American citizens who are seeking employment or have employment. And then there are others who look at this in a more pragmatic sense. And I always like to say, you've got to figure out who's talking to Trump last if you want to figure out where he's going to land on this stuff.
So, Senator, let's take a bigger picture look here. Obviously, this is part of an agenda the president-elect is trying to put into place. He's trying to get his team in place to do so. Members of his potential cabinet have been on Capitol Hill meeting with senators in recent days. What is your assessment of the quality of the incoming selections and whether or not you think that some of your Republican colleagues may say no to a few who have been identified as perhaps the more problematic, Hegseth, Gabbard, Patel, and the like?
Well, we've already seen them say no to one of them already. Of course, have concerns. But like any process, previously, even under the Trump administration and the Biden administration, as a senator, I take this process very seriously. It's important that we engage in that advice and consent. I'm going to do my due diligence. I'm going to listen to the hearings. I'm going to meet with the individuals, ask questions, and then make a decision from there. But do I have concerns with some of them? Absolutely. And that's why I'm going to be hopefully meeting with them and asking them the questions about their intent as they get into these positions.
All right, Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, thank you very much for coming on the show this morning. We really appreciate it.